Today's topic is orthomyxovirus. Orthomyxoviruses are spherical or filamentous enveloped viruses, and they are single-stranded and they have segmented RNA genome. They have a unique property of hemagglutination, which means they have the ability to absorb onto mucoprotein receptors which are present on erythrocytes, where they cause hemagglutination. Initially, they were called as myxoviruses. Myxa means that they have affinity for mucin. As these viruses, they were able to attach to glycoprotein cell surface receptors with affinity for mucin. Later on, now these viruses, they are separated into two groups, that is orthomyxovirus and paramyxovirus, because of the differences in their properties. Orthomyxoviruses basically causes influenza, which is an acute respiratory illness, and it causes influenza in humans. However, it can also infect pigs, horses and birds. Influenza viruses has three serotypes, that is type A, B and C. Type A and B, they are morphologically similar, but influenza virus type C, it is different in that the segments they are divided into 8 segments or 8 pieces, but type C is the genome is segmented into 7 pieces only. Morphologically, it is spherical, 80 to 120 nanometer in size, pleomorphic. A nucleocapsid is helical in symmetry. The RNA genome is negative sense, single-stranded, and segmented into 8 pieces, but in type C it is 7 pieces, and it has RNA dependent RNA polymerase. The virus is enveloped and the nucleocapsid enclosed by inner protein layer, which is called matrix layer or M protein layer, and outer lipid layer. The protein part or protein layer is virus encoded, but the lipid layer, it is host encoded, and this acquires a lipid envelope during the process of replication by budding. The lipid envelope has peplomers, and these are the translipid glycoprotein peplomers or spikes. These are of two types, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. The hemagglutinin is triangular in cross section, neuraminidase is mushroom shaped in cross section. The difference between type A, B and C is that in C you have only one only hemagglutinin spike is there, neuraminidase is not there. This is the structure of influenza virion. You can see the virus is spherical in shape, and then it has a RNA which is segmented. Nucleocapsid has RNA which is segmented, and then we have spikes on the lipid envelope. It is enveloped virus, and the spikes are triangular or mushroom shaped. The triangular spike or these spikes are hemagglutinin spikes or peplomers, and these are neuraminidase spikes. Now, what is the function of these two peplomers or spikes present on the virus envelope? If you see these, the triangular spikes or glycoprotein spikes, these are hemagglutinin spikes, and the basic function is they attach to the salic acid present on the host cell. So they attach to the receptors which are present on the host cell. Whereas the mushroom shaped spikes, these are neuraminidase, and the function is they cause the release of the virus from the infected cell. Antigenic classification. Influenza virus has been classified on the basis of 4 major structural proteins, that is ribonucleoprotein, which is the nucleocapsid protein, then is M protein, which is the matrix protein, and then we have 2 surface glycoprotein, that is hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. They have been classified on the basis of antigenic nature of ribonucleoprotein and N protein into 3 types, that is A, B and C. Whereas further they have been divided or classified into subtypes types on the basis of antigenic variation of hemagglutinin and neuraminidase antigen. So far, there are around 15, now 16 hemagglutinin and 9 neuraminidase types which are known in birds. However, some of them they have been also found in various combination in humans also. In humans, we have 3 hemagglutinin type and 2 neuraminidase type. Hemagglutinin types are 1, 2 and 3. Neuraminidase types are 1 and 2. Usually non-human virus, it does not cause any it does not transmit human to humans, but sometimes they can cause pandemic by genetic reassortment with the human variants or viruses. This is the difference between type B and C, A, B and C. If you see, type A and B basically causes significant disease and responsible for epidemic and pandemic. Epidemic by type B and epidemic and pandemic by type A. Whereas type C is responsible only for inapparent cases, and there is high morbidity and mortality in type A as compared to type B. And type A infect human and other species, whereas type B and C is exclusively for humans. And the reason why the type A has more severity or more morbidity, because it has wide transmission which occurs between human and other species, and also there is antigenic variation which is more frequent in type A as compared to B and C, which is infrequent. Antigenic structure: ribonucleoprotein or nucleocapsid protein. It is specific for type A, B and C. So on the basis of this they can be differentiated, and it is stable protein. Then we have matrix protein, which is also type specific. It is composed of 2 components, M1 and M2. Hemagglutinin is strain specific and is responsible for antigenic variation. It is composed of 2 polypeptides, that is HA1 and HA2. It is a triangular spike and causes hemagglutination or aggregation of RBC, which means when the influenza virus is mixed with suspension of foul erythrocytes, the virus will adsorb to the mucoprotein receptors which are present on the surface of erythrocytes by the hemagglutinin spikes, and this virus will link the adjacent erythrocytes, which will result in aggregation of RBCs or hemagglutination. This is important laboratory reaction and is a simple way to detect the presence of virus in egg or tissue culture. The second papillomere or glycoprotein spike is neuraminidase. So main function of hemagglutinin is to bind to the RBC receptors and cause hemagglutination. The neuraminidase function is reverse. It destroys the RBC and releases the virus from the infected cells. So hemagglutinin basically binds to the receptors, and the virus, it helps in binding to the receptor. But here neuraminidase, it leaves the binding and releases the virus from the infected cell. It is also strain specific and surface spike, which is mushroom shape. It destroys the RBCs and releases the virus from the infected cell. So how do you nomenclature of virus, how it is done? It is done by the type followed by host of origin, place of isolation, strain number, year of isolation, and virus subtype. So if you see, virus type is A. Fusion is of geographical origin. Suppose after this we have a host origins. If it is human, it is not written. Otherwise, for the swine or avian, it would be written after virus type. So as it is human, so it is not written here. So it would be followed by geographic origin, which is Fujian. Strain number is 411. Year of isolation is 2002. Virus subtype is H3N2. These are subtypes. Antigenic variation. The unique property of this virus is that this undergoes antigenic variation. This antigenic variation is seen highest in type A, less in type B, and not seen in type C. The RNP protein and the matrix protein are stable, whereas hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, they are basically responsible for antigenic variations. And two types of variations are seen, that is antigenic drift and antigenic shift. Antigenic drift is there are minor antigenic changes, and these antigenic changes occur in hemagglutinin or neuraminidase or both. And the antigenic variation is gradual and sequential, which occurs regular at intervals but at frequent intervals. There is mutation in hemagglutinin or neuraminidase genes, and the new antigen which is formed, this is different from the old but related to old, which means the antibodies which are formed to the previous variant or the exposure, it will be formed against the new antigen because it is related although it is different. This is responsible for epidemics. So if you see this is a virus, these are the its segments. You can see there is a point mutation which occurs in the hemagglutinin or neuraminidase, and there is mutation over. These are the slow gradual mutation that occurs but at frequent and regular intervals, responsible for epidemics. So H3N2 virus, the pigs are infected and they develop antibody to this strain. After some time, the population immunity exerts pressure for hemagglutinin to mutate, and then a new strain emerges and individual cells antibody to the new strain. Now this mutated virus will transmit to the previously infected pigs, and they will be susceptible to drifted strains. Antibodies will be produced against them, but because of the relatedness to the previous strain, but they are different because their mutation has taken place. So this is known as antigenic drift. Antigenic shift, this is a major changes occur in hemagglutinin 2 and 3 subtypes and neuraminidase 1, 2 and 3 subtypes. Here a new subtype is formed and it is unrelated to the old virus. So here the antibodies which are produced to the previous variant will not be affected in neutralizing the new subtype. This is not due to mutation. This is basically due to gene reassortment which takes place between the animal and the human viruses, which can be avian or animal viruses. And the previous virus, which is the antibodies which are formed to the previous virus, it will not be able to neutralize the new virus because it is totally different. It is responsible for the major epidemics and pandemics. So this is antigenic shift. You can see that avian virus, swine virus and human virus, they are from different hosts. The genetic reassortment takes place and a new virus is formed. Now this new virus is combination of these viruses, and this is totally a new variant, and the antibody to this virus won't be able to neutralize this new reassorted virus, and that is why how the pandemics occur. The difference between antigenic shift and antigenic drift. Antigenic drift is you can see there are small mutation, there is small alteration in the antigenic structure or genes, and this is a gradual change. This is responsible for epidemics. Whereas here there is a genetic reassortment and there is completely new subtype is formed. Here there is genetic relatedness, although different, but here there is no genetic relatedness. This is completely new subtype, and that is why it leads to pandemics. And this is a very there is a fast sudden change occurs in this. There is alterations are very new and they are very strong. Cultivation. Now this virus can be cultivated in egg. For the virus cultivation or isolation, it can be inoculated into the egg, into the amniotic cavity of 11 to 13-day-old chick. After few passages, it can also be inoculated into allantoic cavity. And after replication from the allantoic cavity and amniotic fluids, we can detect the presence of virus by the property of hemagglutination. Then is tissue culture. The influenza virus, they can be isolated on primary monkey kidney cells, human embryo kidney cells, and maiden Darby canine kidney cells. And here you will see the cytopathogenic effects, but they are not very prominent. So the virus growth, it can be detected by hemadsorption or the demonstration of hemagglutinate in the animal in the culture fluid. Next is animal inoculation. The influenza virus, it can cause experimental infection in ferrets and mice when they are inoculated intranasally. Pathogenesis. The route of entry is respiratory tract, and spread can occur from person to person by airborne droplets or contaminated hands and surfaces. The viral neuraminidase, it lowers the viscosity of the mucous film in the respiratory tract, and once the viscosity is lowered, there is exposure of the cellular surface receptors, and this promotes the spread of virus containing fluid to the lower respiratory tract. And within short duration of time, the respiratory tract cells, they are infected and killed. Interferon is effective against influenza virus and attributes to host recovery. The influenza infection, it causes cellular destruction and desquamation of superficial mucosa of respiratory tract, but it does not affect the basal layer of epithelium. The viral damage in the epithelium, it lowers its resistance and make it susceptible to various secondary bacterial infections like Best staph, strepto, and Haemophilus influenzae. So basically it causes influenza, acute respiratory distress syndrome. It can vary from a mild coryza to fulminating pneumonia. The incubation period is 4 days and it is self-limiting and subsides within 7 days. The flu symptoms are sore throat, pain in the muscles, cough, rhinitis, fever, and headache. So there is a quite confusion between the cold and influenza. Both of them, they are caused by viruses, and there would be overlapping of some of the symptoms like stuffy nose, coughing, and sore throat, and basically causes respiratory infections. But still you can make out easily because in influenza all the symptoms would be more severe, and the muscle ache would be in both of them, but here it would be mild fatigue. Here it is throughout, and there would be exhaustion. The onset is gradual in cold, onset is sudden in influenza. If you see influenza, you will see the fever would be more common and high, headache would be there, and then cough would be there. Fatigue, pain, it would be moderate, whereas mild in common cold. Exhaustion is severe in influenza, and stuffy nose and sore throat, this is more common in common cold. Usually the uncomplicated influenza, it gets subside within a week, but sometimes it can lead to complication like pneumonia, which is more common or seen mainly in elderly and debilitated persons. And in this, the influenza can increase the risk or susceptibility of the patient to bacterial superinfection, and this is basically because of the loss of ciliary clearance and dysfunction of the phagocytic cells. Another important complication which occurs in children and adolescents is Reye syndrome, which is an acute encephalopathy. For the diagnosis, the samples you need to take is nasal or nasopharyngeal swab, oropharyngeal swab, or throat swab. This is useful only within 2 days of illness. Same is for the avian influenza, which is caused by birds. Transportation of sample is done in triple packing system. That is, it has to be in primary and secondary pack. And triple packing is done because there is no leakage of the sample should be done there. Lab diagnosis. First is demonstration of virus antigens. For this, the viral antigens in the clinical sample, they can be detected by immunofluorescence. This is a rapid test for the virus detection. Here the smears are made from the nasopharyngeal secretion and nasal swab, and the deposits of throat garglings are prepared. This is prepared on slide, and then this is treated with fluorescent tagged antisera, influenza antiserum, and this is looked under fluorescent microscope, where if the clinical sample had viral antigens, it will fluoresce. Other thing we can we can detect viral RNA genome by RT-PCR. This is a thermocycler where we have several steps of PCR like denaturation, annealing, and extension, basically to amplify the RNA genome, and this can be detected. The virus genome can be detected by PCR. Then is isolation of virus. Isolation of virus can be done in initial 2 to 3 days. We can take the throat gargling, and this is selected in a suitable buffer containing salt solution, and then inoculated into the amniotic cavity of the egg, and also into various cell culture lines like human embryo kidney cells, monkey kidney cells. This is incubated in egg at 35 degrees Celsius for 3 days, and then the amniotic and allantoic fluid, they are harvested separately. The fluids are then tested for hemagglutination, and for hemagglutination we use 2 types of RBCs, Winnipeg RBCs and foul RBCs, and these are then tested at room temperature and also at 4 degrees Celsius. The type A influenza virus, it agglutinates Winnipeg RBC only, whereas type B influenza virus, it agglutinates both the RBCs, which means Winnipeg RBCs as well as foul RBCs, whereas type C, it agglutinates only the foul RBCs. This is how you can type between A, B and C influenza virus. You can further subtype them into by the hemagglutination inhibition test. Now this is showing hemagglutination test and hemagglutination inhibition test. What we do is we take the patient serum, and this is mixed with the serum from the guinea pig. Now this will have erythrocytes. Now virus will absorb to these RBCs, and this due to the adjacent RBC cross linking, it will cause the lysis. Hemagglutination will be seen as like this. Whereas if the virus is mixed with the serum, with the guinea pig serum, and it has antibodies. Now these antibodies will coat this virus and will prevent it from absorbing to the RBCs. And then what you will see, this hemagglutination which is occurred in this because of the absence of antibodies, here it will not occur. This will be inhibited, and you will see a button formation in case of hemagglutination inhibition. The basis of heme agglutination inhibition assay is that the antibodies to the influenza virus, this will prevent the attachment of virus to the RBCs, and heme agglutination is inhibited when the antibodies are present, and the highest dilution of serum that prevents heme agglutination is called heme agglutination inhibition titer. This is a plate where how we check the heme agglutination inhibition titer. These are the samples A to H, and this serum is diluted in doubling dilution, 1:4, 1:8, 1:16, 1:32, like this. And then we check for lysis, and we also check for heme agglutination inhibition. Now the highest titer which gives the heme agglutination inhibition is called heme agglutination titer, like in this. So for serology we can do complement fixation test. In the complement fixation test we use RNP antigen, and antibodies are formed against this antigen during the infection, but not during the after or post vaccination. Then is heme agglutination inhibition, which I have already told you. In this, if you see, this is lysis, this is lysis, this is lysis. So HIE titer would be, the antibody titer would be the highest dilution, which shows heme agglutination inhibition. So in this case it is 1:80. And then we have to check for 4-fold rise in titer of antibodies between convalescent and acute phase serum. Coming to immunity, the first strain attack, it causes, provides 1 to 2 years of protection. Now the protection is of short duration because the virus the structure undergoes antigenic variation. And there is a term called doctrine of original antigenic sin. What it means is that what happens that when the body encounters infection, first time infection, the antibodies are produced against the dominant antigen. If you see this, the dominant antigen is this blue one, and these are the recessive antigens, okay, the arrow one. So during the first exposure, the antibodies would be produced against the dominant antigens, okay, and this would be strong immunity. But after some time, after the evolved stage later on, if it is exposed with new dominant antigen, with the original antigen now being recessive, the immune system will still produce the antibodies against the old but now recessive antigen, and not develop new antibodies against the new dominant one. This results in ineffective or weak immunity. If you see here, what happens after some time, this becomes the dominant antigen and this becomes the recessive antigen, as in this case. So what will happen? The antibodies will be produced against the dominant previous antigen only, which is now recessive, but again the antibodies will be produced against this only, not against this, the new dominant one. And this is why this becomes ineffective to handle this